The Flavian Amphitheater stood at the heart of imperial Rome, a monument to power that could hold 50,000 spectators within its walls. The Roman state transformed justice into entertainment, punishment into performance. But among all the spectacles staged in that arena, none were designed with more calculated cruelty than the executions reserved for women accused of sexual transgression against the powerful. The historical record preserves uncomfortable truths about Roman arena culture. These were not spontaneous acts of violence, but carefully orchestrated events involving architects, engineers, animal trainers, and administrators. The apparatus of state terror operated with industrial efficiency, turning human suffering into civic ritual. To understand how such a system functioned, we must first understand the Roman conception of justice as spectacle. Roman law recognized multiple categories of execution, each corresponding to social status and the nature of the crime. Roman citizens of high rank might receive quick, private deaths. Non-citizens, slaves, and those convicted of particularly offensive crimes faced public execution designed for maximum deterrent effect. The arena became the stage where the state demonstrated its power over bodies and lives. The legal framework distinguished between simple execution and execution with aggravating circumstances. A criminal might be sentenced to the beasts, meaning they would be killed by animals in the arena. But for certain offenses, particularly those involving sexual transgression or treason, the sentence specified more elaborate forms of death. These executions often took the form of mythological reenactments, where condemned prisoners were forced to play roles in staged recreations of legendary punishments. Historical sources document the practice with clinical precision. The poet Martial describes arena spectacles where condemned criminals enacted scenes from mythology. The historian Suetonius records that emperors commissioned these elaborate executions as entertainment for major festivals. Archaeological evidence confirms the existence of specialized equipment designed for these purposes. The treatment of women in arena spectacles followed particular patterns that reflected Roman anxieties about female sexuality and social order, where male criminals might be granted weapons and the possibility of fighting for their lives. Women were typically rendered completely helpless, their vulnerability itself becoming the entertainment. The distinction reveals how Roman society understood female transgression differently from male crime. Sexual offenses by women, particularly adultery involving women connected to powerful men, carried special stigma in Roman culture. A wife's infidelity threatened the legitimacy of heirs and the honor of her husband's family. A mistress who betrayed an emperor's confidence represented both personal insult and potential political danger. The punishments devised for such women aimed not merely to end their lives, but to destroy their dignity through public degradation. The historical figure of Valeria Messalina provides context for understanding how Roman society treated sexually transgressive women. The wife of Emperor Claudius, Messalina was executed in 48 CE following accusations of conspiracy and sexual misconduct. While sources disagree on the specifics of her crimes, they concur that her death was designed to serve as public warning about the consequences of female infidelity and ambition. The arena spectacles that punished unfaithful women drew on a repertoire of mythological themes. The story of Pasiphae, the Cretan queen who coupled with a bull and gave birth to the Minotaur, provided particularly rich material for arena producers. Roman audiences knew this myth well, understanding it as a cautionary tale about female sexual transgression and its monstrous consequences. Historical sources confirm that arena producers created apparatus specifically for staging Pasiphae reenactments. These devices, sometimes called the wooden cow or wooden heifer, were hollow frameworks shaped to resemble cattle, into which condemned women were placed and restrained. Ancient writers describe these constructions with matter-of-fact precision that suggests they were standard equipment maintained by arena authorities. The selection of bulls for these spectacles required particular expertise. Animal trainers developed methods for conditioning bulls to perform as required. The logistics involved transporting large animals to urban venues, housing them in underground chambers beneath the arena, and managing them during the spectacle itself. The entire process represented significant administrative and technical investment, evidence that these executions were not improvised cruelties, but systematized practices. The crowds who attended these spectacles came from all levels of Roman society. Seating arrangements reflected social hierarchy, with the best views reserved for senators and wealthy citizens. While common people watched from higher tiers, the diversity of the audience meant that arena spectacles served multiple social functions, reinforcing class distinctions even as they provided shared entertainment. The afternoon spectacles represented the climax of arena programming. Morning events typically featured animal hunts and criminal executions. The hours after midday, when crowds had been properly prepared by preliminary entertainments, showcased the most elaborate and expensive productions. These were the time slots reserved for spectacles that required special apparatus, trained animals, and extended duration. Emperors attended arena events as part of their public duties. The imperial box provided a prominent vantage point from which the ruler could be seen by the assembled crowd. His presence transformed the spectacle into a statement of imperial power, a demonstration that the emperor controlled not just life and death, but the manner and meaning of dying. When an emperor personally commissioned a particular execution, his attendants guaranteed that the spectacle would proceed as planned. The political dimensions of arena punishment operated on multiple levels. On the surface, executions demonstrated that crimes would be punished and social order maintained, but arena spectacles also served as warnings to potential enemies of the state. A senator watching a condemned woman's prolonged destruction understood the message. This could happen to anyone who offended the emperor. The spectacle communicated power through the language of physical suffering. Historical records document cases where condemned prisoners attempted to negotiate their fate. Some offered information in exchange for commutation of sentence. Others appealed to influential patrons who might intercede with the emperor. These attempts rarely succeeded, as canceling a publicly announced spectacle would humiliate the emperor and disappoint the crowd. The administrative machinery of arena entertainment, once set in motion, proved difficult to stop. The phenomenon of crowd mercy, where spectators demanded clemency for a condemned prisoner, occurred occasionally in gladiatorial contexts. A fighter who displayed exceptional courage or skill might win the crowd's sympathy, leading to chants demanding his release. Emperors could grant such requests, enhancing their reputation for magnanimity. However, this mechanism applied primarily to gladiators, professional fighters who participated in recognized combat. It extended far less frequently to condemned criminals, and almost never to women convicted of sexual offenses. The scholarly debate about Roman arena culture centers on questions of interpretation rather than the basic facts of what occurred. Historians agree that elaborate executions happened regularly and that they enjoyed broad popular support. The disagreement concerns what these practices reveal about Roman society and how we should understand a civilization capable of such systematic cruelty, alongside remarkable achievements in law, engineering, and administration. Some scholars emphasize the ritual dimensions of arena spectacles, arguing that they functioned as collective ceremonies that reinforced social boundaries and shared values. Others focus on the political utility of spectacular violence as a tool of state control. Still others examine arena culture through the lens of entertainment history, asking how and why societies transform suffering into amusement. The archaeological record confirms the scale and sophistication of arena infrastructure. The Colosseum in Rome, completed under Emperor Titus in 80 CE, incorporated underground chambers, animal handling facilities, and mechanical systems for raising condemned prisoners and animals to the arena floor. Similar amphitheaters existed throughout the Roman world, evidence that arena spectacles were not confined to the imperial capital but represented a widespread cultural practice. The eventual decline of arena executions followed the gradual Christianization of the Roman Empire. Christian writers condemned the games as immoral, though their objections focused primarily on gladiatorial combat and less consistently on the execution of criminals. Arena spectacles continued in modified form well into the 5th century CE, declining finally not from moral objection but from economic collapse and political instability. Modern examination of Roman arena culture requires balancing historical understanding with ethical judgment. We can acknowledge that these practices represented the norms of a different society while recognizing them as profound violations of human dignity. The historical record preserves evidence of systematic cruelty that should neither be romanticized nor ignored. The women who died in Roman arenas left few traces in the historical record beyond brief mentions in literary sources and legal texts. Their names, when preserved at all, survive primarily as examples in discussions of crime and punishment. This silence itself reflects Roman attitudes toward women's lives and deaths. Those deemed deserving of spectacular punishment were denied even the dignity of detailed historical memory. The legacy of Roman arena culture extends beyond antiquity. These spectacles influenced later European attitudes toward public execution and punishment as entertainment. Understanding this history helps explain how societies construct systems that normalize violence and transform suffering into civic ritual. The mechanisms that made arena cruelty possible: bureaucratic efficiency, popular complicity, and the transformation of punishment into spectacle recur throughout human history in various forms. The Flavian Amphitheater stands today as a monument and a warning. Its stones preserve evidence of architectural genius deployed in service of systematic cruelty. What happened within those walls was neither accidental nor exceptional, but represented the deliberate choice of a sophisticated civilization to transform justice into entertainment and human bodies into props for mythological theater. That such a system could flourish in a society capable of remarkable cultural achievements remains one of history's most disturbing lessons about human capacity for both creation and destruction.